It's a miracle problem to have in my mind, and I'm so proud because every time Dak takes a snap, I see our future getting stronger. I see the encouragement that his future brings to this team. I see what he's doing right now, his presence on that particular series or that particular down. All of that is there, and then I look over there, and in my mind, someone that is very capable of winning it all.
So normally we say if you have two quarterbacks, you have none. But, of course, this instance is very different, Max, and in Jerry's world as well. Do you agree with him that this is a miracle problem to have?
First, let me say, because we're on the subject of the Cowboys, I said a couple segments ago that T.O. went from the Cowboys to the Eagles and went to the Super Bowl. Obviously, he was on the Eagles first and then the Cowboys. Second, of course, it's a great problem to have. Of course, it's a miracle problem to have. Most teams don't have a single, not most, many teams are looking for a single good quarterback. And the Cowboys have two, a veteran and a rookie. That's a great problem to have. But let me translate what Jerry Jones is really saying here, Stephen A. Smith. He's saying Max Kellerman was right. Right? Do you remember what I've been saying this whole time? Romo's job, because Jerry Jones kept saying it's Romo's job, it's Romo's job. I said, yeah, it should be Romo's job, unless Dak Prescott still only has one loss. The Cowboys are still sitting on one loss when Romo's ready to play. Then the history of the NFL has been, it doesn't matter if you're Kurt Warner, you can lose your job to injury. You can win it by injury, and you can lose it by injury. Mark Bulger's the hot hand, even if he's not as good as Kurt Warner on his best day. It's Bulger's team. Warner gets traded ultimately or has to leave St. Louis ultimately. That's the way it works. And what I really see Jerry Jones doing here is softening his position. His position was, when Romo's healthy, it's his job. Oh, but look, we still only have one loss. Well, maybe it's still Dak's job. We have to wait and see. That's what I see Jerry Jones saying here, Stephen A. Smith.
It doesn't matter to me what Jerry Jones is saying. I find him laughable because I find him laughable. And the reason why I find him laughable is because when I think about Jerry Jones, I think about a 73-year-old man that is 3 years removed from acknowledging that the clock is ticking on his life and that he's desperate to win and win now. And then he follows that up by talking about the future and how bright it is. Well, what has happened? What is he, Mork from Mork and Mindy, that show back from decades ago when Robin Williams, the late, great Robin Williams, the comedian, God rest his soul, used to sit up there and used to get younger as opposed to older? Who is that now? Jerry Jones? No, last time I checked, he's still getting older and older. And the Dallas Cowboys would need to understand that the clock is ticking. Do I think they're getting closer? Yes. I can't deny the fact that they're formidable. When you're led by two rookies who are playing outstanding football and you've got an elite offensive line, the best in football, there is no question that there's a tremendous upside and this team should be a contender for years and years to come. But Jerry Jones is still there. And what he's essentially saying to you, Max, is that he's the guy that can mess everything up. When I think about Jerry Jones, the owner, the president, the general manager for the Dallas Cowboys, just looking at his record here, his stellar record, I mean, he's 234 and 203. He's made the playoffs 13 times in 28 years. This is the Jerry Jones that we're talking about here, with a 14-10 record, who hasn't won a playoff, he's won 2 playoff games in 20 years. So when he sits up there and talks about the future being so bright, acting like he's got time, instead of appreciating the urgency of the moment, understanding that Dak Prescott is balling in such a fashion that it is a chemistry you may not want to disrupt, and somehow, some way, just days removed from sitting there and saying that Tony Romo is getting healthy and Tony Romo, when he can play, it's his job and that's it, case closed, to now talking about it's a miracle situation for him or anybody else to be in. It just shows me what the problem with the Dallas Cowboys is. They need an owner, a president, and a GM who knows how to be that and not try to be the coach. And that's not the case with Jerry Jones.
Well, Jerry Jones,
that is where your problem lies.
Jerry Jones, I think, learned recently that he couldn't exploit his wealth in a league with a hard cap. he couldn't exploit loopholes in the rules as he did with the Deion Sanders signing decades ago at this point, when he helps lead the charge for a salary cap and then gets around it.
He's just realizing that?
And then gets around it with the bonus structure and the way that prorates the bonus.
And that just happened? And that just happened?
Yeah. Yep. Eventually what happened was, and we've seen it in the last several years, is he's now trying to cash in, it looks a little bit to me, on his wisdom, on the fact that he's been around the game, and he finally realized a couple of years ago that he ain't good enough as a GM. He needs help, and he ceded control largely, or a big chunk of it, to Stephen Jones, who's made much sounder football decisions over the last several years than Jerry Jones had in the previous years. And I think now the Cowboys are reaping those rewards.
As it particularly, I'm not talking about his marketing brilliance, his business acumen, because that's not to be questioned. But strictly as it pertains to football, I just want to make sure I'm clear. Did you mention wisdom and Jerry Jones in the same sentence? Did you just do that?
Yes, but sometimes the wisdom is knowing, Stephen A., sometimes the wisdom is knowing what you don't know.
Oh,
and he finally figured out that he's not a good enough GM to do it by himself.
He's figured out what he doesn't know, huh?
Yep.
Jerry Jones, you willing to put your money on that? That Jerry Jones has figured out what he doesn't know.
I'm not putting my money on it.
Really?
I'm not putting my money on it.
So you just talking. You just talking. That's all it is.
No.
Jerry Jones and wisdom.
I finally see some signs of maturity from the septuagenarian, starting with Stephen Jones being allowed essentially to assert himself and saying things like...
What was that? Was that septuagenarian? Is that the word you used?
Yeah, 70-year-old.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I just want to make sure. I just want to make sure. Another word I haven't heard on first thing.
I'm jealous of your vocabulary.
No, I got that. Just want to make sure. Okay, I just want to make sure. I just want to make sure.
The point is, remember when he wanted Johnny Manziel? And by the way, you don't even have to know that. Everyone just knows, knowing Jerry Jones. Johnny Manziel's available.
You and I both know.
He had to
it
be
was
drooling.
The alcohol. It was rumors of other issues why Jerry Jones was dissuaded.
No, it's because Stephen Jones put his body in front of it and drafted an offensive lineman who's worked out a little good.
And I'm telling you, it wouldn't have happened if Johnny Manziel was coming out of Texas A&M clean. Jerry Jones would have overruled his son. That's what I'm saying.
Stephen Jones has been running the show much, much more in recent years than he ever had, and maybe more than Jerry. And it's paying dividends for them now.
Really? It's paying dividends?
Yeah.
Now? Oh, now. Oh, okay, good. Not the last 20 years. Okay, I just want to make sure.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
Well,
one good season in the last decade.
Stephen Jones increasing control is not that old. It's over the last several years. That's how long it takes to put a team together. And apparently they've been put together.
Like I said, you're very understanding. With you, no one get fired. I mean, everybody have a job in the perpetuity because, after all, it takes time. It takes time. Everything takes time. Coordinators, coaches, players, everything takes time in the world of Max Kellerman. Yeah. Everybody will have a job.
Stephen A. Smith, no one would be employed. You fire everybody.
You're right. You're right. I damn sure would. I damn sure would. I ain't be the first to tell you.
All right.
My attitude with respect to all young people, including athletes who may have a higher profile, is you get engaged, you get involved, you get educated about the issues that are affecting your lives, and then figure out what's the best way for you to make a difference. Some people may decide that's through protests. Others may decide, I want to mentor. So my advice is not that there's one way of bringing about change. I think there are multiple ways of bringing about change. If you are committed, engaged, and have studied the issues, then you'll have a positive impact and you'll find what feels right for you.
That was the president appearing last night on ESPN's town hall from the campus of North Carolina A&T, which is the nation's largest historically black university. Stephen A., what was your reaction to the town hall last night?
Well, I deeply appreciated our president saying what he said, highlighting how there are a multitude of ways to make a difference. You know, he's talking about it's not just about protesting. Sometimes it could be about mentoring. Sometimes it could be about putting your money where your mouth is behind certain causes. Sometimes it could be uplifting young brothers and sisters by playing the role of mentors, you know, taking them to games, meeting them for lunch, having conversations with them, advising them, counseling them, etc. It harkens me back to something, somebody I have great admiration for, my man Joe Madison, who hosts the Sirius XM radio show on the Urban View channel. He's always asking his callers, okay, I hear what you're saying. What are you going to do about it? there are a multitude of things that you can do. You can call your local councilman or woman. You can call your local congressman or woman. You can call your local senator, et cetera, et cetera. You can do things to make a difference. The reason why that resonates with me so profoundly, y'all, allow me to be incredibly open about myself and what a multitude of African Americans have to endure who are in the public eye, who are deemed to have a voice. On far too many occasions, one of the issues that exist within our community is that people want to define for you what you should be doing. And they want to highlight one specific way or one specific thing you should be doing in order for you to make a difference. And if you don't do it their way, they got a problem. Allow me to give you a perfect example, Max. So many times we talk about Michael Jordan and how Michael Jordan, we attach that infamous, bad sort of negligent quote where he talked about how Republicans buy sneakers too, something he said in the 80s or 90s. And obviously, you would have preferred at times that he was a Jim Brown, that he was a Kurt Flood, that he was a Muhammad Ali, okay? That he was even a LeBron James who's been willing to speak out on a bevy of issues in recent memory. But we ignore the fact that he's almost a billionaire, if not a billionaire already, that he employs black people, that he puts money in the pockets of African Americans who he employs, that he helps to educate folks. Same thing with a Kobe, same thing with a LeBron, etc. We ignore those kind of things because we want to define what somebody is supposed to be doing. So for the president to come out and to say, there's not one particular way to skin a cat, and there's not one particular way to be, or to attribute or to give a contribution to our communities, I think that was incredibly important, particularly considering the locale, which was North Carolina A&T, which is right down the road from my alma mater, right up the road from my alma mater. Great university, by the way.
I want to piggyback off what you just said, Stephen A., because expressions of anger and protest frequently, for example, Kaepernick's and many athletes, that can be constructive, and the president wasn't saying it can't be constructive. He's saying in times that is good, if that's a platform you can use. But oftentimes expressions of anger feel good in the moment, but that moment is fleeting. You know, it almost acts as a safety valve. You don't like the way things are, the status quo isn't good, and so you're going to say something, and you feel helpless about it, you express your anger, and you stick it to the man. And then that little safety valve releases that steam, and you just go back to life in the status quo as it was. And what the president was saying, I mean, a significant protest is, sure, it's good, but you can also, just by like mentoring a kid, sticking it to the man feels good in the moment, but helping a kid actually has a lasting effect over the long run. And so there are various ways that you can make societal contributions and change the status quo that don't have to be just an outward expression of anger that feels good in the moment, a protest that if you have a platform to do it, there are all kinds of ways that people can chip in. I thought that was very good. I thought Stan Verrett, by the way, used that Sawatsky technique, that's the interview guru here at ESPN, and put the president right in describe, explain mode, and did a fantastic job. The president had to carefully choose his words because Stan was doing such a good job with the interview.
Knowing our company, he probably met with Sawatsky for about 10 hours before the Obama interview. But let me also say this. Listen, what you're essentially saying is that you got to take into account the repercussions as well, because sometimes getting caught in the moment of emotions, it feels good to exhale at that particular moment in time. It doesn't take into account the collateral damage and the ultimate ramifications that could come to follow because of those few moments of emotions. These are the kind of things that we have to take into consideration. Just a few weeks ago, you had Isaiah Washington, the former actor from Grey's Anatomy, who's an outstanding actor, by the way, really wanting black folks not to spend their money on a particular day just to bring attention to the cause that the African American community finds itself fighting against in this day and age. Whereas a justice columnist, Sean King, for the New York Daily News, appeared to be a bit more organized in what he wanted to do. But instead of joining in initially, what Isaiah Washington wanted folks to do was join him And then when folks didn't do that, then ultimately he modified his position. But again, people sometimes are not on the same page, coming from two different places. Although the goals and the agendas may very well be the same, some things need to be thought out. Things don't need to be initially reacted upon, particularly based off of emotion. Because when you do that, you usually lose.
That's expedient and feels good, but the doing part is harder. And I thought the president focused on that very well.
And if you missed the town hall, you can check it out on the undefeated.com, their website. A ton of great content there.